Action.
All right, we're gonna talk about the immediate and long-term future of this industry. So we're gonna the most fun part. Fortunately, Richard Swart is not here because he'd make us talk about actual data, facts. So this is the most fun part. We're gonna speculate. Okay.
For our audience home.
I'm sorry. For our audience at home, my name is Mark Roderick. I am a securities lawyer who specializes in crowdfunding. Introduce yourself, please.
Oh, sure. My name is Oscar Jofre. I'm the CEO of a company called CorConnex, and I help issuers navigate the process of getting ready for regulated crowdfunding Title III, Title II, and Title IV.
My name is DJ Paul. I am the co-chair of CIFRA, which is pretty much the tree organization of record and advocacy group for the crowdfunding industry. Formerly a member of the Security Exchange Commission's small and emerging company advocacy and advisory group. I am also a consultant with other companies, and I've worked with most of the bigger players in the space, but a large number of them through CIFRA and also independently.
Okay, so actually, DJ, I threatened that you were not going to be allowed to talk, but I knew that could never happen. So
I never believed you anyway.
Yeah, tell us what CIFRA is doing today.
Okay, so right now, CIFRA's been just a tiny bit of history, just to say how it got here. CIFRA started off not as CIFRA, but as a loose affiliation of like-minded non-lobbyists, just people who wanted to get this stuff passed back in, I guess, goodness, it's 4.5 years ago now. It started, let's say, January of 2012. And then at a certain point, as the law passed and then was signed, passed both houses and was signed into law, let's say in April or so of that year, we came together and actually formed an organization. Since then, just as an example, I helped set up the first meeting with the Security Exchange Commission from the crowdfunding industry, which that meeting actually was what caused CIFRA to kind of like have to actually be with a name on it. And subsequent to that, we have worked with the SEC on not just the Title III issue, but most of the Jobs Act. We've written letters, we've had meetings in order to help kind of, might be presumptuous to say guide them, but they've asked for input, we've given it, and by and large they've taken a disproportionate amount of ours rather than anyone else's. But the question is, now that the Jobs Act, the last bit of it, Title III, is about to be lit up in, I guess, 2 months and a week, what will CIFRA then be doing? There's still stuff to do. I hate to be overly repetitive, but some of this was discussed. We discussed a little bit yesterday. The first is to make sure that best practices for Title III are named and hopefully adhered to on a voluntary basis. We don't intend to be a policing organization, but we do intend to point out when somebody's doing something wrong. I don't like rats, so I don't think we'll be reporting to the FINRA or the SEC, but we'll be making it known that, hey, maybe you're not doing it the right way. And I might get outvoted on that because there's some people at the organization who would like us to take a more active policing role, but we'll see. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. Additionally, Title III has been fraught. It was never, it's more than what we wanted, more than what we thought we were going to get. It's not what we hoped we might get, but that's politics and that's the way it goes. So we're going to, be actively trying to educate people about the ins and outs of it. Some of the things we're, for example, just briefly discussed in the last session. Additionally, going forward, and I'll wind up here, there's still more to do. And again, we discussed this, or I hit on some of this yesterday, the expansion of the accredited investor definition, which we've been out in front on for almost 2 years now, which could be a massive change for this entire space. But trying to monitor Reg A Plus so that the deals that are going through it, and this is true for all the deals, are not overly hyped. So we don't want to see down rounds if we can avoid it. So we're kind of monitoring that. And education now that everything's going to pretty much be lit up, people need to be educated about what it is that's available, this continuum of possible funding activities for small genuinely small, as opposed to the SEC's definition of a small company, which is under $250 million. That's small too, I guess, non-public. So I mean, we'll be busy. It's a different kind of busy now. We're not trying to get legislation so much passed. Now we're trying to help enact it and make sure that it's best practices are followed, and it becomes at least partially what we all hope to produce.
Okay, so I think all of us in the industry have always felt that the bigger the ecosystem, the better for everybody. So that even if you're a Title II, when there were just Title II folks in the industry, Title II needed Title IV and needed Title III to build a bigger ecosystem, because the more you get network effects and you get more entrepreneurs coming into the market. So I guess I'll ask you, Oscar, first. What do we do as an industry, people in this room, how do we get more investors into the space? Right now, as you guys certainly know, there are very, very few investors in this space. I mean, like a minuscule number relative to the, potential investing public. So how do we just wait? Is it just a matter of people hearing from their friends, doctors talking to one another in the OR, I made this great investment and you should
I
try.
hope they're not talking about their portfolios in the OR, man.
They are. They actually are. But what does everyone do? Is there a systematic outreach, or do we just wait for it to happen when people start hearing about good returns?
Actually, no. I think, one thing about crowdfunding, the key element that everybody has to look at is what brought it all together. And this is one of the things that I'm constantly reminding back. It's social media. This is a very, very powerful tool that 5 years ago we didn't have. Today we do. And I think the industry, as DJ pointed out, it's education time, and education means getting everybody involved in the crowd. We need to get the lawyers involved. We need to get the accountants involved. We need to get industry involved. One of the things that I'm working on, just to give you an example, a couple of years ago, we had this problem in Canada, very similar to the United States, where you have regulators, taking their time, and then you would go from one city to the other. People would go, is it legal or illegal? Nobody had any assurance that this was actually working. And so what we did, we decided to go after the biggest brands we could find in Canada that would stand behind our message and to see what impact it would have. And we were very fortunate that we partnered with the world's largest law firm to stand behind our words. And it's amazing the impact it had in the audiences that come out to the events to listen. So when we said it's legal, they weren't second guessing me anymore. They go, yes, it is. And that ecosystem, we've now built it out where we do this worldwide. And I believe that will be the key element to getting beyond the small group of investors that are already supporting the ecosystem, but we have to go beyond that. Portals, that for those who are thinking of running a portal today and you want to stand alone, you're not going to survive. It's just, again, crowdfunding is a crowd, and the first crowd is your inner crowd. People like CIFRA, the organization you have to be part of, getting your lawyers involved in your accounts and getting your friends and your colleagues. It's amazing when you do that empowerment. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, but it does require work. And
well, tell us what you mean when you say if you're thinking about running a portal, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's.
What is that? Do you mean that portals have to be gigantic?
No, they don't.
Conglomerates owned by Wall Street.
No,
that finances war and bad famine and disease. Is
No,
that what you're saying, Oscar?
Not at all. No. What I'm saying is that, like a company, human behavior is about conversing and networking. Look at us today. It's a great small group of a crowd. Okay, somebody would say, well, the crowd should be bigger, but you know what? There's 20 people here. Well, that 20 could be made into 200 to 2,000 to 20,000. And it's very simple because each of you have a mobile device, each of you have a LinkedIn profile, and all we ask you to do is this, and spread it. And it's amazing how messages go viral. So some portals, though, unfortunately, they want to play alone. I don't need anybody else's help. I want to do all this by myself. I want to do this by myself. I want to do that by myself. And then you end up being by yourself because nobody comes out to the party. Right? You have to be very social. This is one of the biggest things that
Because crowdfunding is a marketing business.
It really is. I think it was Darren Marble said it over and over again. And please don't forget that. It really is important. There's the underlying regulations and all that, but you have to get out and you have to reach out and you need to be talking and constantly educating all the time.
And now you can. And that's kind of, that would be something that we used to hit more when Title II was just getting lit up. But the point is, not to be overly wonkish or whatever, to do with arcane laws from 1933. Nevertheless, we've been laboring under them for the better part of 80 plus years. And now, for the first time since 1933, you can advertise a securities offering, a private securities offering. And to some extent, you can, let's say, promote Title III when it comes up in 2 months. That's really big. That's really new. Nobody in this room, I believe, I'm sure, has ever seen an advertisement for a securities offering because it's been illegal since before most of your parents were around, or at least before they were. So in any case, that's a big deal, and no one's quite licked it yet. I will say that the Elio guys and Crowdfund X seem to have done an awfully good job with that. That's independent of the value of the offering, just in terms of like harnessing marketing for the purposes of doing a securities offering. I have been trying to get, talk about Wall Street, talk about Main Street, talk about K Street. I have been trying to get Madison Avenue to pay attention to this for 3.5 years. I've been saying to them, hey, going to the big advertising agencies and saying, there's a market now, right? You can the thing that you guys do for a living, advertising, is now legal in a huge industry that you never had access to, $1 trillion business, which is, right big. None of them seem to get it, or I should say very few, and they don't know how to lick it. Someone's going to figure it out, and it's a big deal. So it's, the more traditional marketing, advertising, as well as, of course, social networking, but most of the big advertising agencies are pretty hip to the social media aspect now.
They are, and it is amazing. I'm starting to see my sponsors that I have that pay me to go around the world to speak. 3 years ago they weren't popping up, but AIG now, they're scared. They're wondering why. How did we overlook this? How do we overlook this new emerging market that could have an impact? And make no mistake, crowdfunding is part of a bigger impact disruption that's occurring all over the place. So, but
yeah, that is true. That is, crowdfunding is part of Wikipedia. I mean, it's the same crowd empowerment.
Yes.
In a big, I told you it's fun to speculate, but it is true. It's part of a shifting of power away from centralization to a wider group of people. So now we hear most of it. We hear back in the day we learned everything from Walter Cronkite when he came on TV at 6 o'clock. But today we hear it from Twitter, and we hear it because someone with an iPhone happened to be at the event taking video. So in some ways, crowdfunding is sort of part of that.
Extension of that. With I would hasten to add, and this would be odd perhaps coming from somebody who's been advocating for it, with all the attendant analogous problems.
Yeah.
To say, when we had Walter Cronkite, he had authority and he would run it, and that we know that the thing that he said was news. Now the Twitter equivalent, whatever, can be awfully wrong.
Awfully.
And I wonder, I want to do some speculating, and that's true for securities stuff as well. The wisdom of the crowd is something that seems to be, at least thus far, awfully good at weeding out fraudsters. That's the good part,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's very good at enough people look at it and go, I know that guy, he's full of poop, and letting everybody know about it. That's incredibly valuable. It's also not the end of the story, it's the beginning of the story. Great, now the guy's not a fraudster. Is the deal any good? And I wonder if there isn't, some value still in having an expert like a Walter Cronkite equivalent. In fact, I don't wonder. I'm positive that there's value in having an expert like Walter Cronkite within the securities actually evaluating the deal. A crowd of people may be good at determining whether or not somebody's full of crap, but they may not be so good at actually evaluating whether or not the valuation of a company is actually is consistent with whatever the company is doing. So we'll see.
And that's why I think the most critical change that the SEC made in the Title III regulations from the proposal to the final, in the initial regulations, as bizarre as it seems, portals were not going to be allowed to pick and choose which issuers they listed. They were going to have to take everyone, that is a weird business model, right? But that was stripped out, and so they do it. They do allow issuers or portals to choose. Just a gigantic difference because then the portal becomes the gatekeeper. And the portal, of course, has a self-interest in only listing good deals. So the way it's working now is the portals, at least temporarily, are the sort of investment advisor. But just to...
No way, let's not use the word advice.
No, yeah, I'm a lawyer, and I understand the implications. I understand the implications, but when a deal is put up on Fundrise or a patch of land and it sells out in 90 seconds, literally, that's not because investors there are speed readers. They are relying on patch of land to be their investment advisor, even though, I represent patch of land, and we are not investment advisors. But
this is the part that scares me a little bit, and I don't mean to pick on patch of land. I think they provide a decent outfit, and I'm sure it's because of your good counsel as well. But there's a lot of that going around this. You're right. You had mentioned before how small the pool is of potential investors. They're very enthusiastic, this small pool. And as the pool grows, that enthusiasm, the appetite is certainly there for it. And I have some concerns that people are just saying, hey, it's up on that site, so I'm going to lift it.
Right.
Instead of actually looking at it themselves. I hope that doesn't end up burning people, particularly as we briefly mentioned earlier in the real estate space, when real estate turns the other direction, because it always does.
Yes.
Period. So we'll see how that goes.
So let me say this, in terms of bringing new investors in, I think it is impossible to misunderestimate the, to use a George W. Bush saying,
I was going to say.
I hope everyone didn't think I was saying
No,
that, no. But to misunderestimate the difficulty of changing behavior. So I'm a partner in a 70 lawyer firm, and of course I am into crowdfunding. I'm evangelical, I'm an active investor. None of my partners, right, these are serious lawyer types. None of my partners, despite my urging and education and nudging, has ever made a crowdfunding investment.
I think you're a little nutty, Mark.
Well, not just because of the crowdfunding. Yeah. No, but seriously, these are people, I tell them about these deals that I get to invest in, these great real estate deals that none of us have ever been able to invest in before. And, none of them has ever made a crowdfunding investment other than me. So that behavior, I guess the question is, how do you overcome that reluctance? Or is that true for your circle of acquaintance?
It's interesting. I mean, I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements in the resource sector, mining and oil and gas. And I got to tell you, I mean, I get audiences, 1,000, 2,000 people, and their eyes just light up, and they're going, okay, wait a minute, somebody's going to go online and invest on a mining company? No, never going to happen. But it's really interesting once you actually explain to them the dynamics and what it really is and how beneficial it is to them. They actually warm up to the idea, and I think it's just, I'm a big advocate of education. I truly believe, like at CrowdConnect, we know for the next 3 years, it's pure education. Pure awareness, but making sure we have a lot of partners. Like I'm constantly looking for lawyers like Mark, but even beyond the group here, just to make sure that the word gets out. So how does it work? Who are the trusted names that we might be able to go to? Where's the association? Give me a success story. It's funny, in the United States, people still asking the question, give me one success story. And you got to be ready. You got to get shown the proof, and here it is. And then the other wake up call is, this is global. This is not just in the United States. In fact, you said it best. We're lagging. Or sorry, it was Richard. We are lagging in the United States. We're behind. Of all the countries in the G20, we are 2-3 years behind on this. So there's evidence. In the UK, I'll give you an example. A $6 million pound deal got done. The first million was raised in 96 seconds.
Is that right?
96 seconds on Crowdfund. Okay? They're actually timing how quickly money comes in from the announcement. So, and they got a mix of breweries to banks to funds to A to Z. Here we go. So the evidence is there supporting that it's working. We just need to get that information out to people like yourselves so you can then take it to the next stage and so on and so on. That's your responsibility and the commitment you made today here. In my opinion, is that it's not enough that DJ, he does a lot of work on the lobbying side. He teaches us. We then go on and it needs to keep going and going and going. And
yeah, one thing that comes to mind, I think that Realty Mobile, very early on, they did a deal for the Hard Rock Cafe, right?
For the Hard Rock Hotel at
yeah, and that I think was a genius, a genius stroke from a marketing standpoint. Just as Fundrise doing 3 World Trade Center. The fact that they have the tiny little slice of it and it's debt and who cares doesn't matter, but it's very high profile. And even within the last week or so, there was some crowdfunding thing in Australia where they funded a public beach access or something like that, and I got that notice from my kids and their friends. So I guess if we all are thinking about ways to publicize crowdfunding, those kinds of stories, even in the donation-based world, that they resonate with people. Crowdfunding is a success.
If I'm hesitant, it's not because I disagree with you. My caveat is 2 things. First, a success story for me is not a successful funding, but a successful exit, a successful company, and it's early for that. So I'm going to hold back. I'm hopeful, or I wouldn't be involved with this, but I didn't think that was going to happen. But it hasn't happened here yet, and there's just not enough time. That's one. The second thing is that I will look forward to. Totally agree with Mark that the high-profile, sexy name recognition, Hard Rock Cafe is what's necessary in order to raise both the awareness, and with the awareness comes the desire for the education, and then we provide something. So we're like, okay, how did this work? Now I will educate you. I will look forward to the day when this is, the totality of this is a mature enough investment vehicle funding thing where it doesn't need to be a sexy deal. It just needs to be a good one. We're not there yet. I get it. And I guess I have a little bit of concern that sexy, people can be taken advantage of if they think something sexy, they may overlook the fact that it might not be a good deal. So I have some concerns about that. So it's a push-pull.
It's actually interesting. Somebody's publishing a book here.
I like really boring deals. I like boring, straight real estate deals with 14% yields that nobody's ever heard of.
Well, this book is about how to find a celebrity to get your deal closed.
Right.
And she approached me with it. And initially, I was kind of okay. Wait a minute, but the logic makes sense. The celebrity's got a crowd. Could be 1 million, 2 million, and they say, "I like this," and it's like, what's his name? Kuchar all of a sudden became a scientist. I don't know, at some lab, just because he said he likes investing. So, I agree with DJ that I think initially we may need a little bit, but there will always be somebody who will take advantage of it in the wrong way, and the deal will be horrible. But people just bought in because of the hype. But we do need the hype right now a little bit. We do need it, but it needs to be balanced.
Yeah, and I think if you're doing a portal, anyone is doing a portal, and you're thinking about what to list, I think you do. My view about marketing. I'm not a marketing person at all, but my view of marketing is it's a lot easier if you think about what people would like and then try to sell that to them rather than you decide what you're going to sell and try to convince them to buy it.
At this point, because
So-
there's too much of a left for education.
Yeah.
That's why I would-
So if you're doing a portal and you're trying to think about what to list, you know, what is sexy? Did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Did you
so
want to
about-
criticize DJ or anything?
Well, I have a couple questions. The one's about regulatory risk. So the SEC had busted the platform. 80% of dollars were returned to investors, and things have looked good so far. Not so. No other fraud cases that.
Well, there's this one outstanding.
But
yeah.
that particular case, I mean, it's really important to know one thing that needs to be better understood about it, is that it wasn't actually listed on our platform operated by a broker dealer. So this is really important, because had it gone through a portal like Offerboard, let's say, who is a broker dealer, the due diligence would have flushed out right there.
Plus, FINRA would have been the first call in as opposed to the SEC.
Yeah.
And that was the one that was based in what, the Bahamas? With
No, the guy right here in California.
Oh,
This
right.
is that oil and gas place. So in this case, it
Yeah.
was listed on these bulletin boards where no due diligence is conducted. Therefore, it's investor beware. So this is the only country that allows that, by the way. Other jurisdictions in the world do not allow bulletin board style. So there's the risk associated
And
with
by
that.
the way, it may be the case that this country doesn't allow the bulletin board
That's
style,
exactly.
okay? Which is to say, it's untested. So for those, this is a good test case because this is the first one, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm glad you brought it up. Honestly, I'm glad you brought it up for several reasons. One of which is one of the bulletin board platforms that we're about to discuss is where I started in this industry, and it's one of the reasons why I left, because they insist. I was a crowdfunder.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm one of the founders of Crowdfunding. No, it's all right. I mean, it kind of, made me look like I actually knew what I was talking about 3.5 years ago when I said you can't do it this way. And we'll see. I might still be wrong. But so the distinction is like this: that the analogy, and it's a good one to get. Is we're still trying to figure out whether or not I often use like Craigslist, eBay, Amazon, and something that's highly curated, Gilt or something like that. Can you use let's call it the Craigslist model for security sales, where you basically put up a bulletin board, classify that, and you're facilitating only in as much as here's the deal, investors come, caveat emptor, come take a look at it. Technologists are the only ones who think that that's even a viable model. The guys at my former shop, and to be fair to them, they are not the only one. There were two others, and there's several of them, so I don't want to be picking on them, but they're adamant about it, was that they were. Does that make sense? And the answer is, yeah, if it's a technology play, or if you're selling a used toaster oven on Craigslist, then that's fine. But there's a whole body of securities laws, that's why Mark has a job and a career, that have been around for a while that make this a different proposition, which is to say the sale of securities is not like buying a toaster oven. So this is somewhat untested, but the SEC has obviously made a strong move to the hoop on this, saying, not so much. However, I will note that as
Do you want to get that clock? It's about to plummet.
I will note that the platforms were not named as litigants.
No,
were
they
just
weren't,
named in
but
the
they were
suit.
named.
They were named as
Yeah.
to how this fraud was perpetrated, or alleged fraud was perpetrated. Meaning they haven't given them the guilt on it yet, but they said, this guy's a fraudster, he defrauded these investors, and the way that he did it is through these platforms.
So your question, is there a question
Yeah,
in
the
there?
question was, so fraud would be, there's a lot of fraud, SEC may change some definitions and rules that could affect this space. Are there other regulatory risks that could shrink the space or make it more difficult, either on the issuer side or the investor side?
I mean, there's always regulatory risk. It's responsive, and there's legislative risk as well. I think that is far off. I think people want to see what's going on before they're going to start doing too much tweaking. Fraud was not made legal with the Jobs Act, a point that for some reason I need to make in front of state regulators from time to time, right? Fraud has always been illegal, it remains illegal. And what this guy did would have been illegal whether or not he did it on a platform or did it individually. The interesting part is simply that now that there's something that facilitates it, does that make it worse? I don't know. Does it make it different? What this dude allegedly did, it was illegal for the last 80 years, right? It isn't suddenly, interestingly, more illegal, right? So
from my perspective, the biggest legal issue in crowdfunding right now isn't even explicitly about crowdfunding, it's about broker-dealers. The industry began with a strong prejudice against using broker-dealers because of the cost, the administration, the bureaucracy, and this was just a really cool technology play, and all that broker-dealer stuff is old-fashioned. We quickly moved beyond that. Nevertheless, almost as a historical anachronism, the industry has not decided on the proper role of broker-dealers yet. Some people use broker-dealers and run all deals through broker-dealers. Other people adamantly resist doing so. And if there's one issue that I talk about more on the phone every day, it's this broker-dealer question. So in terms of a regulatory risk, I think the first thing that the SEC is going to do to police the crowdfunding space involves broker-dealers.
how so?
I think they are going to take regulatory enforcement action against some of the sites, which I will not name.
In the non-broker-dealer funding portals.
I think they will take.
You mean the one? Forgive me. I just want to clarify. You mean the ones that are currently doing Title II deals?
Yes, currently doing Title II deals without broker-dealers, and in a way that, as always, you know, the pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, right? That's a saying that is as true in law as it is in most things. And so they're going to focus their enforcement action on the real outliers, and I could name a few for you, but I won't. So I think I think that's what's going to happen. The SEC is going to come into someone and say, you're doing this wrong. You are selling securities through an unregistered broker-dealer, and there's going to be a lot of, it's going to be fun for us because we're going to have a lot of conferences, and I'll get a lot of calls and so forth. It's going to be great. But that's going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench. I mean, my view long-term is that all portals must be broker-dealers. That is my...
For Title II.
For Title II and Title IV.
And Title IV. Okay.
So because
and
that's
for Title
what...
III, they can be either broker-dealers
Yeah.
or funding
Portals.
portals,
They have
which
to
are
be
still
licensed.
regulated by FINRA,
Yeah.
and we'll
But
see
the-
whether or not that question gets answered, which is to say whether or not the portal, the non-broker-dealer portal model in Title III is viable.
Needs it.
Yep. That's the
yeah,
closest thing to a legal
Are you
bulletin
saying
board.
that the broker, the portal has to be licensed?
They will have to sell securities through a licensed broker-dealer.
Through.
I don't mean that the portal will have
There's
to
gotta
be
be an
a
AD in the
broker.
mix.
Okay.
There- yeah. Big-
Right. Question here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're talking about the future, what kind of is
Speculating.
coming up,
It's fun.
speculating.
Fun.
Any word or whispers about Indiegogo getting into Title III? I mean, about 2 years ago, we read that they were thinking about it. I personally work closely with a Title II platform that has been approached by Amazon. So I would just love to hear maybe some
Speculation.
things that you've heard from
Yeah,
your
I mean, I actually heard from
platforms.
several people yesterday at this conference who claimed to have inside knowledge, and they're having, based on that inside knowledge, both conclusions are reached.
No and yes.
Yes, no, and yes. So I
Or
don't.
Angel List, for example, I can see them doing already, plus,
Sure.
very easily with their heavy syndication.
Yeah, I mean, the question is whether let's just speculate as to whether Indiegogo and Kickstarter leverage their brands to start equity crowdfunding portals, or do they not, because they are risking damaging that brand when investors lose money, which they certainly will.
Certainly more than speculate that Kickstarter is not going to do it because they're number one. They're way along with their investors, and their investors don't want them to mess with a good model. Indiegogo is number two. Maybe they want to be number one. Maybe Rocket Hub is number three. Maybe they want to get involved. And certainly will say that of those three, which are the top three in the United States, Rocket Hub has been more deeply involved. The officers of the Rocket Hub, Alon, what's his name?
Don't know.
Goodness, has testified before Congress. He's a grown-up. He's articulate. I really enjoy him.
Well, they started another portal with another brand
Right.
instead of damaging the rocket hop.
Right, that was the direction that they
What
went
about
because they wanted to.
AngelList?
AngelList is a different color.
Well,
that-
AngelList
No, but
is a Title
you see
II,
right
is a Title II
Right,
portal.
right, but really take to that and.
Bulletin board.
Bulletin
Yeah.
bulletin
Yeah.
board,
Yeah.
not a portal.
Okay.
Sorry, I just,
Bulletin.
sorry, just that, I mean, that's where the alleged fraud occurred in one of
I
that.
just, so, fine, here's my crystal ball.
But this-
I
I'm
agree
sorry.
with Mark, that straight up, that at a certain point in not so near future, I think, that you will not be able to sell securities, facilitate the sale of securities without some sort of regulatory, schema in place, period. So to answer your question, you want to do business with somebody and not worry about the regulatory risk, don't go to the bulletin board. Make sure that there's some sort of broker dealer involved. This is just friendly advice. I'm not an attorney. I'm just saying it's in response to your question. That would be the safest.
Okay,
and
let
I
me
think
just,
it'd be fine.
let me say one last thing in response to your question. I do think it's highly likely that there will be overlap, that there will be portals doing donation-based fundraising and Title III and maybe other title fundraising. So I do think you'll see overlap. My guess is probably not Kickstarter because they're just would be too afraid of tarnishing the brand. But that's just fun speculation. Yes, sir.
I looked at this Title III portal as an opportunity to reduce the cost of capital by allowing a non-broker dealer to participate in it. But I agree that the relationship, the regulatory framework is going to be very interesting because we heard earlier that these portals take commission.
Yes, they can. Because they are licensed, you understand?
Yeah, yeah.
They are licensed, they're mini broker dealers.
Well, so as I thought about it, I thought of the analogy of the relationships that websites like Zillow, Trulia had with the real estate industry, where the real estate brokerage industry did not want to make it easier or cheaper for a home to be transacted
Yes.
outside of their network. And it seems to be, to what extent do you see similarities between the brokerage industry seeing a threat to non-broker dealers participating in transactions?
I think it's a little bit more than that. I mean, MLS, real estate listings, that's a much different compared to securities law regulation. I mean, look up, we can put 4 or 5 different lawyers together here to help you out and put out a deal on Title II, File 6C, and you will go through, the risk associated with your opportunity, the legal structure, debt equity, it's a little bit more complex. And I really, one thing we can learn from around the world is that everywhere you see an equity portal being launched today, especially any outside of the United States, requires a broker dealer, one form or another. There is no if or buts about that. You have to know securities law.
Let me phrase the question a different way.
Sure.
5 years from now, do you anticipate that the cost of capital, raising capital, will be significantly lower than it is now?
There's always going to be a cost associated.
Yeah.
I think,
Drop.
sure, I mean, it's going to drop. Look at the UK. I mean, they started at 10 points on raising capital. Companies are now negotiating down to 2.5%. But let me tell you, I mean, we just did a deal in Canada. They raised $5 million, total cost, everything broker, dealer, marketing, 12%. Okay? Now, compared to the olden days, well, they didn't have to fly. They didn't have to go from Vancouver to New York they did everything from Vancouver. So I think what people need to look at is what is the true cost of raising capital. I think a lot of entrepreneurs think it's the fee to the broker. Be thankful you pay somebody to save your butt. Seriously, I mean,
It's insurance.
it's the best insurance you will ever have on money coming into your company because you never had to do AML, you never had to do investor accreditation. That was their responsibility. That's what you're paying for.
Well, yeah, I just have to respond 1 second to that because the way, I mean, I think everyone should be broker dealers. But the thing about the anti-terrorism and the AML stuff, okay, this a little bit is one of my pet peeves because the broker-dealer industry, all of whom I love, tell the issuers we will do your AML checks for you, for example. But issuers do not have any AML responsibility. It is the broker who has the AML responsibility. So the brokers are saying, for $50 per investor, you pay us to do our own AML check. So it's just a funny, it's fine, but it's a little funny. Will the cost of capital come down? Absolutely. Has the cost of the transportation from my hotel to this location come down because of the internet? Because the internet directly connects me to the Uber driver, and that brings down transaction and friction? Absolutely. And crowdfunding is just the internet, so it is already among, the lawyer class. It is already driving down costs, okay?
And it-
significantly.
I think ultimately it drives down costs, but I think that people are, I don't want to say that I bristle when people bring up their cost of capital, because of course it's significant, and I've seen some crazy deals with it. But it's about access. If the cost of capital stayed the same, there's a bunch of people that wouldn't have had access to pay, they wouldn't have the opportunity to overpay for the money, if you want to put it that way. So it's a bit of both. Do I think the cost comes down over time? Yeah, but it's not to be understated that, when you really need it, you'll pay for it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I've never heard that said,
Okay.
but that is an excellent point. Even if
Jeez,
the
Mark,
cost,
I'm so glad you let me talk today.
even if the cost stayed the same, if more entrepreneurs can have access to capital, it is a grand slam. Did you have a question, sir?
I'm just wondering, in 18 months or 2 years from now, when a headline comes up for Title III that says 90% of all Title III companies have gone bankrupt, which is probably likely, what does that do?
Does nothing, and that's not going to happen. Go
Or
ahead.
70, or what?
No, actually,
70.
I'm going to
Okay.
give you a
Okay.
stat from the UK.
All right.
Because the UK, you want to talk about startup, they were raising like £300,000. So they've now had crowdfunding for about 4 years. 90% of companies are still in business.
It's actually 90%.
90% of companies are still in business. And here's a better example. ASOP, the world's first equity crowdfunding portal. 85% of companies after 14 years are still in business.
So you think there's something inherent about that channel that makes...
No, let me back up. Let's go to the non-crowdfunding universe.
Yes.
Here's some stats, right? So in the universe that we exist in now, pre-Title III, right? Startups. This is from startups or new businesses, and the SBA, the Small Business Administration, puts out statistics every year on failure rates, and they have remained relatively constant at 50%. This is without the benefit of
50?
50. Half of them fail. They usually list the top 10 reasons why founders who have failed feel that they failed, and the first two reasons, and it's usually, and they switch back and forth, is we ran out of dough and we didn't have expertise. Okay, we ran out of smarts. So as long as the number is less than 50%, which is to say that failure, if it's more than 50%, you're right, I'm wrong, this thing is doing the wrong thing. If it's less than 50%, then there's something to this. I will say this, those top two reasons why businesses go out of business, well, we're making obviously access to capital, and I mean that is the point, so they'll have access to funding, they have a good idea, and maybe the second reason that they ran out of expertise, maybe they'll be able to find some decent advice among investors. Maybe they'll be able to touch with the crowd. Someone is looking at a deal that has to do with, we talk about real estate a bit too much, but I don't care, a pizza parlor, and a guy, retired, he was in the restaurant business, and the pizza parlor wants to open up a second, Gino's too, in suburban Detroit instead of, downtown where their business has gone for the last 20 years. And the guy says, hey, if you want to buy those Blodgett ovens, don't buy them new, buy them used, whatever. And he says, I'll give you, I'm going to invest in it. So maybe there'll be some mentoring that happens as a result of it. It's kind of like scaling mentoring as well. So perhaps two of those major reasons why companies fail will be addressed by this. We will see, and if we come back next year or in 2 years and the failure rate's greater than 50%, I will apologize to you and tell you.
I don't want to be right.
No, he won't. He won't. But I mean, those are great. Those are incredible statistics. And when you think about that, that's throwing darts. If you say the portal, going back to what we said earlier, is going to curate deals, is going to choose them because of course they want to be successful.
Right.
if they are if they can get, close to 85%, that would just be absolutely amazing. Yes, sir.
How much of this sort of failure rate, you hear out here in the valley, that's a failure rate for these startup companies is 85, 90%, and we get our returns from these companies. But that's different when you're the SBA companies you're talking about are probably just your basic companies that already have cash flow, or that are sort of operating. They're not pure technology startups.
Yeah, who cares about technology startups?
Yeah, I was just going to say technology
that's
startups.
my point. That's actually my point. Is
Skew
that
the numbers.
sort of the biggest opportunity is for non-tech and for just regular old businesses. And I wanted to know if that is the experience in Europe. That those those are the type of companies, and how do you think that'll develop or change going forward?
I think technology, obviously technology is prone not for failure. So make no mistake, technology, you fail to succeed. I mean, I've been in technology for 30 years of my life, and I can tell you how many times I failed, but each failure gave me another piece of technology to move forward. So I think those numbers are a little different. In Europe, what we've seen, it's your everyday businesses, breweries, you have flower shops, cookie shops, like we're talking everyday businesses. I think everybody, one thing that I've...
the kind of businesses that in this country try to get loans from the SBA and rarely do.
Exactly, and I think the other thing is that everybody's thinking that crowdfunding is to look for that unicorn, and I know some people sell it. There may be the next unicorn in there, but some of the founders of the Jobs Act, Jason Best and Sherwood, they started this concept called maybe the next rabbit, and because what's wrong with having a company that employs people, creates jobs, brings a good return? You put in $1 million, and they were able to have 12 employees, and it just keeps going and going. What's wrong with that? Absolutely nothing. So, I see a much positive side of this with crowdfunding. The accessibility to capital, it definitely changes that mindset of that business owner, entrepreneur. Technology aside, as you all know, technology is not one of the top sectors in crowdfunding, not at all.
Okay, we're going to take one last question because we're almost out of time from Joel Block, who's going to tell us why none of this is going to work. And it's going to bring us all down.
It's all going to work.
Okay.
So first a comment. First is that I'm not sure if we're going to do any of this Title III stuff on our platform, but if we did, part of our curation process, it would be a condition of participation that we allocate a certain number of dollars to oversight. So what you guys are calling mentorship, we're going to install a part-time CFO. We're going to, that'll look over many companies, management, marketing, all the issues. So we already, because the idea is not what's key in entrepreneurship or venture.
It's execution.
It's the management team. It's always about the people. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you're going to deal with bread and butter companies, one of the questions we haven't, we keep talking about equity crowdfunding, but bread and butter companies are never going to be equity deals, because I don't want to participate in your family's dry cleaner, which you don't have any intention of ever selling, so there's no way for me to ever get my money back. So
no exit. I want debt because I want it self-liquidating, because equity in the dry cleaner or the pizza parlor doesn't exist. I'll lend you $250,000 to set the thing up.
Right. What I see is equipment financing, it's structured debt.
Yep.
And there'll probably be a cottage industry of companies that pop up that oversee those debt, because the platform is not going to be in a position to manage the payments all the time, and it's just a whole new industry is going to be popping up.
There needs to be a whole, I can give you a number of other pieces of the financial ecosystem that's going to have to develop around that,
Yeah,
which, by the way,
lots of
are
good jobs.
also opportunities for everyone in this room. So with that said, unless anyone wants to have the final word, we will conclude. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you.